Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. And this is Before the Box Score. Lawrence has been burned edition. We defeated Kansas yesterday. We, the collective we, as in you, me, us. We all did it. Nathan Hurst, how you doing?
God-fearing members of society across the globe. We're all joined together to defeat that scourge. So, yes. Otherwise, sunburned, scratchy voice, which, I will happily take for a 11-point victory over Kansas any day of the week.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work to defeat tyranny. So,
of course.
It's okay.
Sacrifice. It takes sacrifice. Sacrificed my skin tone for a while. I'll be pink for a few days, but
yeah. Now you don't need to out yourself as to where you sit, but were you in a position to participate in the not one, not two, but three renditions of Mr. Brightside? Did you partake?
I mean, I partake anytime Mr. Brightside comes. It's a banger of a song.
Good.
It's my go-to.
Good.
It's my go-to karaoke song anyway. So, yeah, of course.
Interesting.
I know the words, all the words, including the extra words.
Did you say the words?
I mean, I said the correct words. The words that go with the song.
Weak. Okay.
I say the words that go with the song.
All right. Fair enough. Sitting up in the sky with some pretty hefty glass in between. The Mizzou chorus of Mr. Brightside was thunderous. That was the first one. And then the second and third ones, ooh doggy. It full of vim and vigor.
Sure. There was no mistaking what was being said and or sung and or chanted. So
no, there's not enough fireworks in the world to cancel out what the students were yelling.
It was not just the students.
Which is as
I can verify that it was not just the students.
Oh no, of course not.
As someone who sits in an area that has no students in it, there was not just the students.
Well, hey, much like you don't have to be a father of children to be a dad, you do not have to be a registered student to be a student. That's a state of mind, baby.
There are about 60,000 students there. We'll call them 55 because there was a contingent of Kansas fans smattered about 55,000 students at the game.
Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't figured it out, I'm sure you have. Missouri won. They beat Kansas. High scoring game, a lot higher than I thought, but I did not anticipate Kansas throwing over 30 passes and barely running the ball. I don't know. What was your biggest impression, either during the game, after the game? We're recording this on Sunday night. What was the biggest takeaway from this?
It was clear. It was frustratingly clear throughout the game. Mizzou was by far the better team. If you look at the stats, back it up, even just the most blatant counting stats back it up. 580 yards of total offense to not even 300. So, they outgained them by more than 300 total yards, short of handing them a touchdown, really two, if you think about that, the long pass on fourth down in the first quarter, short of handing them a couple easy scores. It was a blowout. So the score didn't really show that till the very end, but thankfully at least it ended up at a point that if you didn't watch the game, you looked at the score, you go, oh, it looks like Mizzou, was a better team, which they were.
They were. I've not seen Bill C's post-game win expectancy, but I anticipate it to be fairly lopsided.
It was 96%. 96%.
My goodness, that'll do it. And that I figured it was going to be plus 90. Not sure if I thought 96, but and it's funny. I think the biggest takeaway for me, other than that, it was clearly Missouri was a class above. Was just how fast we freak out as a fan base. As I was live tweeting the game, I got several responses saying, Drinkwitz is crumbling and again in a big game. He's getting out coached. Things of that nature. And I responded to one, and I responded to the one that I figured could take it. He and I have interacted online several times before. He seemed like a good sport. I just responded, it's the first quarter. It wasn't even 15 minutes at that point. And I want I understand that fandom is not a rational thing. There's a lot of emotion that gets tied to it, especially in the college side. So I'm not pointing fingers. I have fallen into this trap too, but we so quickly, we can't even enjoy a game without, putting a long-term stamp on what this means, forever for this game and for the trajectory of the program and for the quality of a coach. It's wild. And I understand it. I mean, Kansas was up 21-6. I get it. But 13 minutes had gone through the game. And Mizzou, it just so happened their one turnover and one of the 2 times they punted happened in the first 15 minutes. That's it. That's the only reason you felt bad, and the score. And from there out, they clawed it back, tied it up, and then won. I'm not going to say handily because there's some tight spots, but like all things considered for an Eli Drinkwitz team, my goodness, they ran away with it.
Yeah, I mean, outscoring 35-10, 35-10 from the first quarter on. So
yeah, he eclipsed 40 points, which is something that he never does. Drinkwitz teams don't go over 40, and he did. So I just want us to be able to appreciate things as they're happening. It's tough to kind of live in the moment with these games and have those emotional swings and look back and go, what a great game. And like, it didn't have to be a struggle. Now, maybe some of the joy of that win comes from the fact that you were scuffling and struggling and stressing and not knowing if you're going to win, and then you did. So maybe that's part of it too. But I don't know. It's just my heart can't take that sort of emotional swings. I want everyone else to take care of themselves and enjoy things for what they were, and let the game play out. I was maybe a little too snarky at times, but I did want to remind everybody that you cannot win the game in the first quarter. You have to play all the others. Okay. That's the rules. And Mizzou backed me up. They fell apart in one quarter. They evened it back out in the next, and then they won. And so, yeah, it was a rough start. I think every single player kind of, admitted to the adversity in the post-game conferences. They were all very open about the fact that like they knew they were screwing up. Even Eli Drinkwitz said like it wasn't, they weren't folding. They would just, they needed to get their head together. They needed, and the unlucky fumble return for 6. I mean, sometimes that happens, and Missouri was able to overcome. So Mizzou was the better team by far that day, and probably days going forward for this season. But also, let's take it easy, man. Let's just enjoy the game as it happens. That's my request.
I understand the angst when you get so fired up for playing Kansas for the first time in 14 years, and then all of a sudden you blink, and a couple weird plays happen, and you're down 21-6. But I mean, I was concerned in the first quarter, but I also wasn't. I didn't feel like it was dire straits yet, because one of the touchdowns was on a fluky fumble that happened to bounce perfectly into the arms of the defender who was already in stride down the field. And the other was, a fourth and 1, and they went deep and, hit a guy who was open. That was a defensive, not a great defensive play, which we may talk about the defense a little bit. But those two plays, they really only had one actual drive that, moved down the field drive. And so, Mizzou had looked great on their first drive. So it wasn't at that point a time where, you're like, oh my God, we don't have a chance here. And even at that 21-6, it was still an even yards number. Both teams had gained 100 yards by that point.
Yeah. And like, I'm not asking people to be the numbers nerds that I am, but like really the way that Kansas got that lead in the first quarter was not sustainable, because it was the turnover for a touchdown. It was a rare 3 and out. If you look at the success rates of the first quarter, and obviously you can read my Beyond the Box score that comes out on Tuesday. I'll rehash this thought too. That first quarter where Kansas built a lead, they had a 44% success rate. Mizzou had a 47%. It's not that they weren't producing. It's not that they weren't executing. It's just you had the one turnover and you had one of the 2 punts, and they just happened to be in those first 15 minutes. It was not sustainable the way Kansas built that lead, and you saw that as they continued to take the field. Now, in the second quarter, they had like 5 plays and 0% success rate, and Mizzou just sat on it when they clawed back. And really, the rest of the game played out very similarly. So you could, to your point, Hurst, yardage numbers, very similar. Success rates, better. Missouri was better, and Kansas was not. And so you got a fluke kind of coming back with that safety. You got the key touchdown in the second quarter, the field goal to close it out. Like Lance Leopold made some really bizarre end of half coaching decisions there. Like it I was not really worried. Like I know there's a lot of angst to playing Kansas, but I would even do heat checks on myself and I'm like, I'm not concerned. Even when they scored late, I was like, well, Mizzou's getting the ball back. They're probably going to milk the clock and score. I don't know. I'm a weirdo, but like I could see how this game was unfolding, and it was just everything was pointing to Missouri winning, not by that much, but by that, winning the game, and they did. And it's not always going to play out that way. And I understand that Texas A&M and Alabama went down 21-0 too, but like, give them a chance, guys. Like it's always doable, especially if it's just 13 minutes.
For sure. And ultimately it turned out to be, this is, if Eli Drinkwitz could script up his perfect Eli Drinkwitz game, minus the fumble given up for a touchdown, I think at least on the offensive side, this is exactly what he would, this is an Eli Drinkwitz, happy dream that he has, that he would have. 580 yards. That's great. The time of possession was outrageous.
Incredible.
39-19. The offense, it did everything that he would have wanted them to do. Hold the ball, long sustained drives, hit a couple explosive plays there for sure. But only 2 punts, 42 points on the board. It's exactly what he was wanting out of this game. So they executed, I think, exactly how they were planning to do, at least on the offensive side of the ball, which you can't really ask a whole lot more for. First round, rather.
No, I agree. And I think he knew. They knew they played a good game because in the post-game conference, he's like, there's a lot of things we got to clean up. He's like, I'm not ready to crown anybody. He's like, there's a lot of execution that we need to fix. He really harped on the defense, did not like the fact that they were in zone for that last scoring drive. And he's like, we got to get more aggressive. Like he was picking nits, which is how that he was like, oh yeah, this team freaking rocks, man.
Yeah. I'm proud of the guys. We tried really hard. I can't believe this effort. I mean, he mentioned that he was proud that they overcame adversity, but there was a lot of negatives that he saw coming out of it, which there are, and we can talk about some of those things that do need to be improved because there are some things that when South Carolina gets here in 2 weeks are going to be problems against a better team like that. So there are things to improve, but when you beat Kansas by 11 points, you're going to be happy with it no matter what.
I mean, Nick Saban was always at his happiest, other than complaining about the game now that he's retired. He was always at his happiest when he had something to teach, something to coach. And wins and losses, like, oh, that was his favorite, to be able to have to coach kids up. I think Eli Drinkwitz and most football coaches are the same way. Really look forward to getting in there and making somebody better. So I do think that's right. And let's talk about those things that they struggled with. And I'll start on the offensive side. The line is still a problem. I've been charting it. I obviously got back late last night and had 2 birthday parties today for kids, so I've not had a whole lot of time to watch it. The requisite amount of times I need to see what I want to see, but I can tell you, I've been charting the directions of which they run, and left side is bad. It's bad. I don't have really another word to describe it. To the point where they stopped doing it and started just focusing up the middle or to the right. So I'll get numbers out to you guys, but that it's a problem. Now, from a pass protection standpoint, wash, and Beau Pribula moves around enough that a lot of that pressure gets negated, or he kind of drifts from one side to the other. So it's kind of tougher to tell, but left side of the line is still a problem. And I know we're 2 games in, but 2 games in, it's still a problem.
I mean, then that was clear from, section 306 where I was watching too, that the left side of it was a problem, especially on running downs. The right side was fine. But really, I mean, even starting, I was really disappointed with Connor Tollerson. He hasn't looked great this year, and maybe he's still recovering from that injury and trying to regain his full strength. And, we'll give him a little while to get back into the speed of things. But I mean, there are several, especially passing plays where pressure right up the middle, right through that A gap between him and Jadis, that it was just, you cannot, if there's one place you cannot allow someone to run straight up and basically untouched, it's right over where the center is, because that's the shortest path to the quarterback. And that's the hardest pressure to overcome for a quarterback is the pressure right in his face, right up the middle. And there were several times when that happened. running to the left, as you said, just didn't work. It was just inconsistent across the board. Most of the really, good running plays were the running backs being awesome. Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, both of those guys were incredible. They both had many, many yards after contact. Several times. I mean, I said multiple times, Ahmad Hardy looks like Cody Schrader if he was fast. I mean, he would not lose yards. He would find a way. If he got hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he's still going to gain he's going to gain 2 yards on that play at least, which was pretty incredible to watch. Jamal Roberts has a gear to him. We saw in this game that we had not seen that gear, that breakaway speed. We had 2 runs of over at least 39 yards, the last one being 60. So they were awesome. The offensive line was hit and miss. I mean, there were some plays that looked good, but there were a lot that need to be shored up because those will definitely come back to bite them against better teams.
Just as an aside, I was on the field when the team ran out for all their warm-ups, so I got to stand. Ahmad Hardy ran right by me, and he is built to load. That man, if football is an ass-based economy, he is in a good spot, man. Like that is just a chunk, and you could see it, like the way he was squatting the entire Kansas defense to gain 2 yards. My goodness, he is something else. He's got that talent to push through.
A better comp for him, other than not Cody Schrader, but Maurice Jones-Drew. I don't know if you remember that guy. He played at UCLA. He played in the Jaguars for a long time. The guy had quads like tree trunks. I mean, he was not tall. I think Hardy might even have an inch or two on Jones-Drew, but short legs the size of tree trunks and low to the ground. Could not bring that guy down with 1 or 2 guys, especially if you hit him behind the line of scrimmage. Just strong, low to the ground, great center of gravity, scoot around and always be moving forward. So I think he's Maurice Jones-Drew, but with more breakaway speed. Once he gets by that first,
I could see that. I could see that. But yeah, I've gotten about halfway through the second quarter, and I've got a sack given up by Green and a sack given up by Tollison. Now the one by Tollison was a little fluky. Tommy Dunn engaged him, and Tollison was hit on the left side by the fight between Jadis and his lineman. And I thought for a second, on rewatch, I was like, oh man, that almost was the injury again that took him out last year, because he bent really weird as Tommy Dunn pushed, and basically right on top of a pile where he fell down. But you're still credited, you still lost your footing, you still lost the battle. And I'm not making excuses, but it was kind of a funky execution there. But yeah, if you have to have a leaky offensive line, it really pays off to have these 2 running backs who can create and take a hit, and this quarterback, because Beau Pribula, I said it last in my 5 takeaways. Best quarterback since Drew Lock, best Missouri quarterback since Drew Lock.
I mean,
he's able to create. He's able to read. He can move. He's so impressive. What are your thoughts?
No, through 2 games, he's been as good as, possibly better than we could have hoped that he would be. 330 yards, I think, is what he finished with. 334, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had the 1 fumble, which, you got to get that cleaned up. But, 8.5 yards per completion, which is fantastic. 30 for 39. So really, what really impressed me with him was his accuracy. I mean, every ball that he threw against Kansas was on the money. Some of them were a bit too on the money, and that the very well covered receivers were, the pass was defended. But there was no ball where you thought, oh, that should have been picked, or that could have easily been picked. There might have been one that a defender kind of jumped up high and deflected, maybe a linebacker. But even that one wasn't necessarily should have been picked. It was just a good play by the defender to deflect it. But he dropped some dimes in there. That 4th down pass to Olubide with the one-handed catch. I mean, he put that ball in the only possible place, because he was double covered. Olubide was the only possible place that anyone could grab it, and somehow he did with one hand. But several other great passes as well. Found Kevin Coleman multiple times on 3rd and 4th downs in tough spots. I think he has the coolest pocket presence of any quarterback since James Franklin. I'll even go back that far. If you remember, James Franklin almost looked like he would fall asleep in the pocket. Just,
Yeah.
hey, I'm just hanging out. I don't know what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I'm having a beer back here. And then boom, just fight, just almost flat footed. He's not as flat footed as Franklin was throwing it, but just that calm demeanor, never freaking out, never, flushing from the pocket too fast or anything. So I really have been really impressed with him. Pretty much anything that you want him to do. They didn't really take a whole lot of deep shots today. I think that's just how Kansas was playing them. They had a lot of explosive passing plays, but a lot of those were 15-yard crossers that were then ran. Kevin Coleman would run for an additional 20, 30 yards after that. So no real deep shots, but I think they were just playing too deep safety a lot, so they just didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I do like old Flatfoot Franklin. He was so sleepy there, and then he'd run and be like the most violent dude on the field. But yeah, I mean, I think to your point, he was not going to force anything, and this is a quarterback who was like in 18 third and fourth down situations, and he was not going to force something. Maybe you could argue that the ball to Olugbeday was a little bit of a prayer. But it was
fourth down. So what else are you going to do? And he put it right.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's so good with his decision making. It's incredible. He continues to just, I know I've said this before, but it's like he's been here for 4 years. He's been throwing to these receivers for 4 years. The way he's able to execute and the way feel it and know where to go. It's been incredible. And, Kevin Coleman, in the post-game conference, he said that when he and Beau showed up on campus, like the first thing they did was schedule out like, hey, when are we going to throw to each other? And like, they just go out there and do it every day. And Kevin and Donovan Olugbeday, every day, 300 balls from the jugs machine. And if you don't know what that is, that's when they take the football and like the little thing that like shoots it out and receivers catch it, and it's really fast and you have to like catch it, squeeze it, and put it down. They do 300 a day. 300 a day. I did one and I wanted to cry. It hurts, man. But that's why they're elite, right? That's why they are who they are. That's why he can one-hand a catch while falling out of bounds. Those receivers, they did him a lot of favors, but Beau Pribula is also excellent. You have more games like that, you're not going to lose. That's just it. Unless, if you want to talk about the defense. Because I know there were some decisions that you're not a big fan of. Look, Jalen Daniels is the exact quarterback that has given Blake Baker fits, Corey Batoon fits. It's just a type of quarterback that is really hard to prepare for. And they also got away from their script very, very quickly, smartly, but quickly. And it took Missouri's defensive backs a little bit. And even then, there's a couple kill shots that just happened to fall off the fingertips. But I don't know, man. Passing effort, but things to clean up, correct?
Yeah. I had expected and thought that the safeties on this unit would be one of the stronger units of the whole team. Certainly of the defense, with some of the new blood that they brought in. And that really has not yet been the case. The cornerbacks for the most part have been okay. You haven't really, or at least you haven't heard their names called in a negative way too much. But the safeties it hasn't been great. Jalen Catalon, I haven't really heard his name a whole lot, period. He's been on the field, just hasn't really been super impactful at this point. Santana Banner's been okay. But Dalen Carnell has not looked great. He did have a great interception right there to kind of ice the game at the end, but he was the man in charge of covering the receiver who had the 50-yard catch down to the 2-yard line there in the first quarter. There was another receiver he was guarding that was wide open on a deep shot that Daniels overthrew by about 5 yards. That was his man as well. And I'm worried that he is going to become a liability in the man coverage passing game. And I think that's the reason why Batoon went to a zone later in the game, is he was really worried. Kansas was doing a really good job, and their offensive coaches are really good at scheming stuff up. And they figured out that Dalen Carnell cannot cover receivers downfield. We knew that already. They figured it out, and they figured out ways when Mizzou was in man to isolate him on a receiver going deep down the field, and he was just not going to be able to keep up with them. He's great in the box. He is not a downfield coverage guy. And if Mizzou's going to call man, which ideally they will be, at least in most situations, or in a lot of situations, they're going to have to figure out ways to hide him, because Kansas and other teams are going to find ways to do that as well. So I think that's why they did a lot of zone, which also didn't work. Kansas was finding holes in that zone over and over again. And, the credit to them, credit to Daniels, who played pretty well. Not amazing, but he missed some throws, but he did play pretty well. And when there were holes in that zone, he was dicing them up pretty good. But they're gonna have to figure out some way to either, if they're running man, get Carnell off the field and maybe bring in Banner and Catalan and Burks at the same time. I don't know what that looks like, or maybe bring in a third cornerback instead, because we really haven't seen outside of. I guess we've seen Hall and we've seen Norwood and we've seen Pride, but that's all the cornerbacks that we've seen. So they're gonna have to figure out something, because I'm worried that's gonna be a loophole or a hole that's gonna get exploited a lot more than we've just seen so far.
So I was sitting next to a scout from the Baltimore Ravens, and not the most talkative guy. I was not really interested in striking up a conversation. I was just like, hey, who are you here for? Who are you looking at? He's like, that Carnell kid. I was like, okay, cool. And it was right around the second quarter, maybe third quarter. He's like, oh, that sucks. And he's like, all right, have a good day. And then he got up and left. I don't read anything into that. He probably had plenty of other games that he had to go to, but he was there. He was there to check him out. At least that's what he told me. And he saw what he wanted to see. So,
and
I don't know. Carnell has gotten better.
I don't know. He's a great player in the things that he does well. He does really, really well, and he's really good within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. And maybe because the Stevens has had trouble guarding tight ends too. Maybe they need maybe have him find the tight end, and that's the guy, because that's a guy he can keep up with. He's got the size to guard a tight end. No. But as far as top end speed, covering with his back to the quarterback, when he's stuck with a slot receiver or even an outside receiver, it's not going to go well. So that's all the coaches to figure out how they're going to use him in the best way to make him successful, and the rest of the team, because he's got his strengths and he's really good at those things.
And he's been really good in coverage the past 2 years. He got a lot better. Now he was definitely a liability in his first couple of years on campus, and I think he would even admit that. But he really cleaned it up. So it might have just been a bad game. That's the other thing. Like you said, Kansas is really good at finding weaknesses and picking at it. That's kind of like their whole thing. So, and having a sixth-year quarterback who's seen just about everything, that doesn't help anything. Especially one that's mobile. That's tough. So, it was a good opponent. Like, no doubt about it. You'd also like to see, a little bit more pressure, especially given the amount of passes that they threw. I've not gone back and looked at the pressure numbers yet. He did get, obviously, the big sack from Zion Young that turned into a safety. I'm not saying nothing happened. But, Kansas was really good at and let me just Jalen Daniels, like just avoiding pressure and being able to get the ball away. There's so many like close instances, like that first touchdown when Chris McClellan was like right there and smacked him, but just not in enough time. So, yeah, I mean, they're a good team. I'm not... I think if anything, obviously Missouri was better, and we saw that they were better. But Kansas is a good team too, and they wanted to win, and it was an emotionally charged game, and Missouri came out with it. So it's tough to beat. And with Drinkwitz saying that I'm not crowning anybody, we're not making any changes to what we do. There's a lot to coach. Like, yeah. He said in the spring that this is the most talented roster, and so far, I'd agree with him. It's been a very good roster, especially with the revelations on offense. I'm not prepared to start saying, undefeated and playoff, here we kill them. Alabama is still Alabama. I don't care how wounded they are. A&M is still going to be tough. I don't care. And it's college football. You are just going to have a dogfight when you don't expect it. But over 2 games, it's been a pretty good season so far.
Yeah, the offense has seemed to at least gotten a little bit of its 2023 explosive play mojo back. Don't know. No one will know. Scientists will be studying for decades what happened to their explosive ability last year. But suddenly it's back again, despite losing two really explosive players in Weiss and Burden. They are more explosive now, and that's just through 2 games. But the running game has suddenly found some explosion. I mean, you have 2 guys with over 100 yards in a game. That's outstanding. Yeah, you got Kevin Coleman with 126 yards. I mean, that guy has juice. And Marquise Johnson didn't even have that big of a day. He kind of tweaked his ankle a little bit early in the game, which I think slowed him down. But I expect him to be right back up at it as soon as that heals up, whatever that may be. He did play the rest of the game, so it's not like it knocked him out of the game or anything. But I'm very excited to see this offense progress and move forward. And if the offensive line can shore things up and give Pribula even more time to throw the ball, and even bigger holes so that Armand Hardy isn't getting hit behind the line of scrimmage 2 out of every 3 times that he gets the ball and still somehow gets 112 yards, the sky's the limit. So I really, they've set a really good baseline, and now, let's see what the ceiling is. Let's keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And beating Kansas doesn't really mean any. I mean, there's a lot of emotional meaning to it, historical meaning to it, but it doesn't really mean anything for the season other than the fact that you're now 2-0. And when BK and I would talk about Missouri teams of the past and how you get super amped for something and they lose in the first 2 weeks, and then you go, oh, okay, now what? Like think of the 2022 Kansas State game. You had the opener against Louisiana Tech, everything looked great, and then you just get blitzed by K-State, and that's when Brady Cook got hurt, and the rest of the season was just a slog, man. Like, winning the first 2 keeps that hope going, right? Keeps that momentum going. And it was, it's one of the biggest games of the year. You have another one in 2 weeks with South Carolina. You got another one when Alabama comes to town. Obviously, every road game is going to be a big game, and we're going to be judged differently on that. But with beating Kansas, throw away all the historical, emotional context. Still good. Your season's still on track. You're 2-0. You still got the buy-in. You got Louisiana coming in, who just lost their quarterback for the season. It's going to be hot as hell next week because Summer just wants to remind us that it's still there. But there's a lot of potential here to keep a lot of positive momentum. And when you're dealing with kids, college kids age, momentum is a fickle thing, and you got to ride it as long as you can. So keeping those wins, stacking those wins, and building confidence, especially for an offense that I had a lot of questions for, and so far they've answered them. Keep that going. And a defense who's got time to figure it out too. So, yeah. Kansas has not beaten Missouri since I was a senior in college. Just let's keep that in mind. Feeling good about it.
That's only 16 years now. Make you feel really old. Yeah. It's been 16 years.
Thank you.
Now a nice 4-game lead in the series, overall series.
Pat it.
Let's keep that going. Keep that going.
And they'll have to go to Lawrence next year, but at least Kansas will be kind of starting a new quarterback. Probably a lot more turnover there, so we'll be interesting on that return trip. So yeah, that's the show. We'll gear up for Louisiana. We'll do all our previews for this week. Hopefully it's a nice easy game. Not a lot of worries or angst, but it's college football. Sometimes that just happens. But at least for tonight, that is going to be the show for today. And as always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nietzsche Edwards. He's at Burst to Hurst. Of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.